Okay, so welcome to the Citizen Advisory Committee's first hybrid public meeting and hearing. We are going to be going over some unique procedures today. I apologize in advance if I am loud. It is because we have one mic in the middle of the room, and so our in-person attendees are going to need to make sure that they speak with their teacher voice today. So welcome again to everybody who's joining us both in person as well as virtual or through other media means. Staff is going to open discussion, then we are going to pass the agenda over to our vice chair today to lead. Members of the public who are wishing to provide comment for discussion during the meeting may still email comments to Vicki Dorway, VDORWAY@everettwa.gov. That's also available on our website. Again, the public may also access this hearing through various ways. You can view the hearing on the Everett TV channel, on Everett's TV's YouTube channel. You can also call into the public call-in number, which is available at the top of the agenda, is 425-616-3920, conference ID 724-887-726#. Or you may access the hearing via online via Teams through the Citizen Advisory Board's website at everettwa.gov. We will also be holding a recording of this meeting as well. So with that, I'm going to pass the agenda over to Vice Chair Mosshart so that she can lead us through roll call and overview of committee procedures.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Sorry you can't see me, but my camera is not working for some reason today. At this time, I will call the roll, and if you could say here, or if I can see Josh, hopefully you can hear me, you can just raise your hand. Demba Balde. Matt Bissell.
Here.
Josh Bruner. Christopher Dingle.
Present.
Molly Eberhardt.
Here.
Samantha Hassan.
Hey there.
Hey. Sue Johnson.
Hello.
Hello. Larissa Knopp.
Here.
Kathy Lynott. I guess she's not here because that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Michelle Martin.
Present.
Yay. And I'm here. Okay, thank you so much. Now we're going to talk about committee procedures. We're going to ask, first I would like the staff to identify themselves, please, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is Kimber Landry, I'm the Community Development Manager.
And Vicki Dorway, Community Development Specialist.
Thank you. Glad to see you guys in the big room.
It's exciting.
So the standard rules of procedure, the chair or vice chair tonight will call on each committee member during discussion. This is a complex hybrid approach, so we ask that you please use raise your hand function on your Teams application if you would like to make a statement. This applies with those in person as well. Please raise your hand and staff will notify the chair of your wish to speak. Committee is to listen to the full presentation, please, from the staff before questions and discussions by committee members. So at this time, I will be passing the baton back to Kimbra to talk about our existing priorities and supplemental funding presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay, so I'm going to share our presentation. Okay, so hopefully everybody should be seeing the public hearing staff presentation. And I just realized I have no way. Can somebody do a verbal confirmation for me to make sure that
I can see it.
It's wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. One of the difficulties of doing this with one screen in person now. Okay, so again, so welcome. This is for the 2022 Supplemental Funding Priority Needs Public Hearing. This is a staff presentation. Of course, this is on Thursday, June 9th. This is not a normal time that we would have our Citizen Advisory Committee meetings. So for those of us who are typical or used to us holding these on Tuesdays, just know that we will again fluctuate back to earlier in the week later on this year, but this is being held on a Thursday this time. And this is with the Community Development Division. And so without further ado, I will jump in. So first, we're going to start with CDBG funds and priority needs, just to revisit some basic concepts and how priority needs play a role in funding discussions. So CDBG funds and non-service activities. CDBG funds are, again, the Community Development Block Grant. They are directly awarded by HUD. Annual fund use is capped at 15% for public services, 20% for administrative support, and then the remaining funds that we receive are typically around 65%, and those are for what we call non-public service activities. Non-service activities are typically acquisition costs, development costs, or economic development related. For the supplemental funding round, again, we're going to be just focusing on the non-service activities. For development costs, some examples can also extend into housing rehabilitation, but let's remember that with CDBG funds, we cannot use any new housing, we can't fund any new housing projects. That's only available with home program funds. But we can also do some examples like improvements to parks or sidewalks or community centers or food banks. Again, anything that's generally not providing the supporting costs for direct service to persons is otherwise eligible. So why are these called supplemental funds? That is because annual awards under the CDBG program are limited to program years, which run July 1st to June 30th, so they're on a mid-year fiscal cycle. When awarded activities either withdraw or cancel their project or underutilize their award during the program year, those abandoned funds are seen as uncommitted in the federal system, and uncommitted funds must be spent within reasonable timeliness under HUD guidelines. So due to COVID, we had a few projects over the past 2 years that were previously awarded funding that were either withdrawn or canceled or had funds left over. And again, to go back to timely expenditures, CDBG funds have typically around 7 years for use. So we need to work on recommitting these to activities so that they can still be utilized. The 2022 Supplemental Fund Snapshot, what we're looking at is we're looking at the 3 years of 2018, 2019, and 2020 program year CDBG funds. Approximately $500,000 or $500,000 is available. And that's mainly left over, as I mentioned, both because of project withdrawal and underutilization, as well as program income. Our CHIP program and our regular CDBG program both receive program income whenever a loan is out on a property and it gets paid back, transfer of title, anything like that. That's where program income comes back in. And under CDBG rules, we must use program income first before we can touch our awarded funds. And so it's usually at the end of a program year that we end up seeing, oh, we have leftover money. Of course, in the past 2 years, with the market rate and everything for single family residential properties, we saw a lot of program income come in through CHIP. And so we're seeing that be displaced for the 2020 program year and then previous years as well. So again, these funds are going to be restricted to non-service use. These are for development projects again only. So what role do priorities play when we're talking about setting priority needs? Priority needs are required to be identified and reported back to HUD on the use of funds. So it's basically directing it on where we're going to be putting our buckets of money into. Needs must be collected through public process, like the public hearing that we're having right now. And again, we will be having a formal public comment period. I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning, and that is my mistake. I should have. And so I'm going to state it now that following action by the committee, a formal public comment period will start on June 13th and last until July 14th following this hearing. Those wishing to provide comment can learn more about this by signing up for the Community Development Newsflash or seeing the legal ad in the Herald. We will both be kicking out a public comment opportunity through those means. So established annually, priorities will guide the program year award and application process. So this is basically a kickoff. So priorities are carried through and they support both the annual action plan and the consolidated plan. And again, let's remember from our previous meeting that each annual action plan supports 1 year of the consolidated plan. That being said, the 2022 supplemental funds will be submitted as part of the 2022 annual action plan, but they can uphold any of the consolidated plan priority needs that are identified. Nope, there's my mouse. So again, just kind of a basic, following public comment, how we formally roll out this opportunity is through a notice of funding availability. So staff will open up the funding pool to competitive applications through this process. This is a just formal requirement for Cdbg and home funds. I do want to mention that even though NOFAs are required for federal funding sources, we do use them for all funding pools allocated under community development. For those of us who may not be aware, a NOFA looks typically like what we have up on the screen. It includes for pertinent information for applicants, anything from amounts anticipated to eligible applicants, priorities for funding, which is what we're about to do today in this public hearing, the criteria, additional considerations for non-public or non-service projects, and that can include environmental considerations that need to be complied with, a schedule and or timeline to make sure that we're working with developers on their needs, and also match requirements. The funding schedule for the year is also typically included in the NOFA, as well as submission and contact information. Let me move our icon up real quick so our in-person attendees can see the full screen. Real quick before I leave this, all of our NOFAs are kicked out through the Community Development Newsflash. And I will mention that we're in a weird period right now where the federal applications for this round are going to be in paper, but I do want to mention for all of our applicants that this will be the last time that we do paper applications. Moving forward, we'll be doing everything through Amplifund for the 2023 program year. So this is the last time we will be taking paper or paper applications for federal projects. So now what we're going to do is get into the established consolidated plan goals and priorities as they exist and get into the actual meat and potatoes of what it is that we're talking about today. So again, just some basics for the consolidated plan. It covers 5 years of federal spending. The one that we are currently under started with the 2020 program year, and it runs until the end of the 2024 program year. And so that time period covers from July 1st of 2020 until June 30th of 2025. It creates a high-level review of priority goals for funds, and goals are, again, supported annually by projects awarded under the program year. The consolidated plan goals as they exist today are up on the screen, and we're going to actually pop up the link, and hopefully the screen just still shared. So didn't like that. Okay, so hold on real quick. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share the document that we need to pull up. Okay, so if someone can come off mute and give me a confirmation that they see the goals summary.
You can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and then we're going to go through the consolidated plan goals as they exist currently. So these goals are all included under the entirety of the consolidated plan. If anybody's interested in some not light reading, a copy of the entire consolidated plan is available on our website. These are only the non-public service goals as they are identified. We have public service goals that are also included on this. However, we have removed those for this discussion, this funding round. Those will be brought back up when we do our 2023 funding opportunity in August. And so real quick, just to kind of go through these for those of us that are viewing this on the TV and or with other maybe some limited viewing for the small writing that we have up on the screen. The first goal that we have listed is rehabilitation of existing units. It addresses the housing need that we've identified. It has goal outcome indicators of rental units rehabilitated and homeowner units rehabilitated. To date, we have no projects that have utilized the rental units rehabilitation. And so that is something that we may want to identify. We do have projects that have upheld the homeowner housing rehabilitation outcome. And those are from the CHIP and minor home repair activities in the 2020, 2021, and 2022 program years. So that goal is getting met currently. We have acquisition of existing units. That is under, again, housing again. That is for direct financial assistance to home buyers with 5 households assisted. We have no goals met assisted to date, but I will mention that we do have active pending awards with 2 agencies that do provide this service. Those awards were put on hold due to COVID. And so we'll be revisiting that this year as well. So that goal it has an NA to it, but I would say that we're actually actively working on that. The next goal is the emergency shelter and transitional housing support. That's another housing need to be addressed. We do have a public service component to that, and that's going to be addressed by the homeless person overnight shelter by persons assisted. When we're looking at that could be actually something like case management, but again, that is a public service qualification under HUD. And so when we're looking at the housing non-service component of this, that would be in the overnight / emergency shelter / transitional housing beds added. We have had no projects to date that have supported that goal. Oh, and yes, and the note on that one at the bottom is that our homeless efforts, this does not include the efforts that we're doing that are supported by other funding sources, such as human needs, our home funds, our HTF funds, which are really supporting 3 shelters right now, and the ARPA dollars that are going out that will also be supporting homelessness. And lastly, we have public facilities. The public facility goal is being addressed through capital improvements. Public facilities are so wide in their breadth and range of activity under Cdbg that can really cover anything from a community center to a food bank to a park to various other capital improvements and public gathering spaces. We are expected to exceed the accomplishment goal that we have listed for that, which is at 3,000 persons assisted. And that is through Child Strives program that is being carried in the 2022 program year. However, public facilities is an ongoing need. And so I would just remind committee members that this may be one that we want to continue to support regardless of meeting the goal for that or not. And then we have our next page of goals identified for non-service projects, and that is with public infrastructure. And again, that's a capital improvement. The public facility or infrastructure needs could again be just as wide as the public facility ones, but really that's going to end up being something that's anything from broadband installation to sidewalk improvements, to utility improvements for a development. We have no activities that have supported this one to date. This one is a little bit harder to balance because depending on the nature of the activity, it could be something where it involves city public works staff, if it's for sidewalk or utility improvement, or it could end up being something where we need to work and be mindful of other federal funding requirements or environmental requirements if this is something to accompany new housing development or new property acquisition for other projects. And the Cdbg funds are used as a supporting component for public infrastructure for that specific project. So we just want to be mindful with that goal. Again, we have no projects that have supported that one to date. And lastly, we have economic development, and that is, of course, supporting the economic development need. For that one, we have a non-service project goal that is being identified for facade and building rehabilitation. We have no building or no projects that have taken advantage of that one to date. We also have the jobs created and retained component of this. That has been fairly well met through the CARES small business and micro enterprise support that we put out in the 2020 program here. So that was a very, very brief overview of that. Now we're going to stop and jump back into the presentation. So if you guys can just hold on with me real quick, and we can always come back and share that screen again. Let's go back to our presentation now. Continue on, it'll let me do that. Okay, so can someone confirm that we now have amendments up on their shared screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I've lost my place in my notes. That's okay. So amendments to consolidated plans. There are 3 different types of amendments that we go under when we do any kind of revision to our plans, and that is that we have a revision, which is a minor amendment. Those require no public notice. That's staff review only. That could be anything from a spelling error to missing a comma on a award or something else, just very, very minor corrections. We're not changing anything with the projects. We're not changing anything that was done through public process. We're just making sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. Minor amendments come forth when we have any alteration of annual goals or change of more than 50% of funding. That can also change purpose, scope, and location of an activity. And that requires no public notice. However, it does require CA or committee and HUD review. And then we have substantial amendments, which will alter the activities, the purpose, and goals, add or delete a section of the consolidated plan, alter the long-term goals, which is what we're looking at right now, and require reallocation of funds through a NOFA. So when we go out for our supplemental funding round, the 2022 annual action plan will be a substantial amendment because we will be going through a reallocation of funds. Public notice is required for substantial amendments, and that includes the city or our committee's review, council review, and then HUD review to then accept the new plan. I do want to mention at this time that that we are not looking at doing a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan. If that's something that following these priority needs, we want to consider, that will be done during the August hearing. And in which case we'll have the time then to tie that in, because we will be looking forward to the next 2 program years that fill out the consolidated plan, which will be 2023 and 2024. And we will revisit altering long-term goals at that hearing if needed. So the first is to see if we're going to have any support of the existing priorities as they stand today.
I'm trying to figure out where to go. I just can't get out of Kimber's way. Other side of it.
We're dealing some hybrid in-person technical needs. Okay, so next step. So following this, I just want to let everybody know that, of course, when we're looking at reevaluating needs, there are a lot of community needs assessments that are going on right now. Many partners are already in their efforts to address what community needs are, because, of course, there's a lot of funding that's coming in. A lot of other people are just kind of going to take restock on where everybody's at post pandemic shutdown. And so I just want everybody to know that in our August 16th public hearing, we'll be bringing forth hopefully more information from community partners, as well as the city's ongoing needs assessments that we are currently going through right now. We will also be revisiting the 2021 CAPER. For those who are unfamiliar with what CAPER stands for, that's basically going to be a snapshot of how our 2021 activities did in the program year to meet the accomplishments and the goals that we have listed. Right now, we are about to close that program year out. It's still going on until June 30th. So by the August hearing, we can actually provide the committee with a better snapshot of where our progress is on meeting these overall accomplishments and goals. We will also be formalizing the supplemental funding recommendations at that August 16th hearing, which means that after, of course, this, let's remind ourselves that we have the NOFA that we will open up for competitive application. Applicants will apply, and then we will bring forth to the committee the recommendation or applications and projects for the committee to make funding recommendations. That will occur at the August 16th hearing. And then finally, we will be establishing the 2023 program year priority needs at the August 16th hearing. So it's going to be a very dense hearing. We're going to be setting up not only closing, we're going to be setting up the next program year as well as closing out the current program year that we're in and setting up additional activities for the program year that we are about to start. Is that clear as mud for everybody? That's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, so following that, what we have here are staff has provided what we recommend the supplemental priorities to be maintained for this next funding round. The committee can either uphold this or have discussion and change or reconsider other priorities. I would just remind the committee that what we want to try and do during this funding round is maintain the existing priorities. If we want to not fund a priority, then we can definitely do that, but we want to wait to remove any of the goals and priorities that are listed until we have our August 16th hearing. So staff is recommending that the committee still support public facility improvements. Housing goal with the specific activities supporting rehabilitation of rental housing units and emergency shelter and transitional housing beds added, as well as supporting the economic development goal with the activity of facade improvements. At this time, if I can revisit where I am on my agenda, we will close it out and stop the presentation. And I just want to add that if we, before we pass it along for the vice chair to open the public hearing, that if any of our attendees in person wish to speak, to just come up to the podium and present comment and of course state your name at the time. And then those who are joining us via Teams who would like to provide comment, please raise your hand to signify a wish to speak. All other comments, again, must have been provided in writing, and we will have time for staff to read those into the record. And so at this time, Vice Chair will stop the presentation and pass it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, I need a motion and a second to open the public hearing, please.
I motion to open the public hearing.
I second it.
Thank you. At this time, there is a discussion from any public attendees that are in person at this time.
Yes, we have one attendee that would like to provide public comment.
Wonderful.
Yep, you're on.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Hi. Thank you for having this hearing today and for having me here. My name is Rachel Downs. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Manager at Housing Hope. Thank you for all your work on this committee. It's a very important funding source for so many of our nonprofits, and so I really appreciate all the work done by staff and committee members. I'd just like to say a few things that we're seeing in the community in terms of needs with the families that we serve. Housing continues to be the #1 issue. You know, the cost of living is rising very rapidly, especially rents. And so we're seeing a lot of families being pushed into housing insecurity and homelessness. And so I would definitely advocate for both emergency shelter and also permanent supportive housing, permanent affordable housing. We just need more housing of all price points, especially that's affordable to people who are, you know, making minimum wage or not much higher than that. And also something that you might want to consider under the public facilities category is childcare facilities. We're seeing a huge need for that. COVID has dramatically reduced the number of childcare providers in the community, and costs are increasing exponentially right now. A lot of families are having to make very difficult decisions on whether to stay in the workforce or, you know, come out of the workforce so that they can care for their children and not have to pay for childcare. So it's a huge need that we're seeing, and that's just a report of some things that we're seeing with the families that we serve. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody in the virtual world that would like to make a public comment at this time? I'm taking that as a no.
Vice Chair, it looks like we have one hand raised.
Okay,
Just
I don't,
Chris.
oh, I'm sorry. And I don't know who that is, so feel free to speak up. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Thank you, everybody, for providing this public meeting and having us open and welcome for me to speak today. My name is Chris Hatch. I'm the Senior Director of Hunger Prevention Services with Volunteers of America. And just in the same respect as Rachel, I just wanted to bring attention to what we're seeing in the food banks and the food realm of things. Nothing has slowed down for us in that area as well. And with the inflation, it's also making a very unpredictable future environment for us. And concerns and needs in that respect with public facility improvements. We're currently still not able to allow clients back into our building. I'm sure some of you are aware of our location at 1230 Broadway. It's an older building. We did actually get the building from the city, years ago. And in order to bring clients and customers back inside so they can shop our shelves again, we're definitely in need to have some updates done to that space. And for the unforeseeable future, without these improvements to the food bank and the communities that we serve, and we are serving over 3,000 individuals a week at that location. So definitely very impactful, and it affects our own Everett community families. So yeah, just something along those lines that I'm seeing in my realm, and what our particular ask might end up going towards.
Thank you, Chris, and I apologize that I didn't see your hand up. Thank you for your comment. Kimber, my question to you is that, are you now repeating to put it in the record, or is it already in the record because they've spoken out loud?
So Susan, I'm a bit confused. So at this point, we have verbal comment that we've had and submitted to the record, and now we actually have written comments that Vicki has also received.
Okay.
That we can also read into the record as well.
Okay, I guess that's where I was confused. So.
Okay. So if we're at that point.
Thank you, Vicki. I think we're at that point. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, we have received one written comment, and it is from Homage Senior Services, who has been providing services that help older adults remain in their homes and support independent living since 1974. And they talk about the similar things. COVID continues to highlight the need to provide consistent and comprehensive services to older adults and adults with disabilities. And the partnership with the City of Everett enables Homage to help clients stay proactive in maintaining their health and independence. Homage assists with basic needs such as a safe living environment, transportation for doctor appointments, nutritious meals, and mental health services. Access to these services is invaluable to make older adults and adults with disabilities feel connected and valued. So City of Everett funding is important, especially as the demand for service remains high and the costs of inflation continue to rise. It also helps all of us continue the work to eliminate barriers and provide essential services. So they talk about a key component of Cdbg funding being affordable housing, and Homage supports this by keeping seniors safe in their homes, which is one of the easiest ways to keep housing affordable. Homage also provides home delivered meals through their Meals on Wheels program, which similar to what Chris Hatch has mentioned, they've seen an almost 50% increase since the start of the pandemic. This program enhances nutrition and improves food security, but also provides a regular opportunity for a wellness check and friendly visit. These services help maintain physical health as well as better mental health. Homage states that Meals on Wheels could benefit from and utilize additional CDBG public service funding in the 2022 program year if it is available. I am now just confirming in my email that I have not received any additional public comments since the hearing started. I am not seeing anything additional that has arrived. So that is it for written comments.
Thank you so much, Vicki. So since we have no further public comments, we need a motion and a second to close the public hearing aspect of our meeting.
I make a motion that we close the public aspect of our meeting.
I second, and we have to, when we make a motion, we have to actually vote, which we didn't do on the last motion.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody disagree to close this portion of our meeting? We like the little bell. Okay, I'm taking that as a all in agreement and a vote. If anybody does not agree, please speak up now. Okay, now we're moving to the individual committee members to ask questions or to make responses. So this will be where I call everybody's name and they're at this time free to comment or ask a question. Matt Bissell, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
Josh Bruner, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Not this time.
Thank you. Christopher Dingle, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Molly Eberhardt.
Yes, I was wondering if the staff could briefly maybe talk about why the recommended areas that you recommend that we keep as goals I think there were 4 or 5 of them, why you recommended those as sort of key to invest in like the supplemental funds.
Yeah, so to that, real quick, I'm also going to add that we probably want to wait to open it back up for committee discussion in the next item, and that will maintain comments to public comments that have been provided in this item. Unless Vice Chair, would you like for us to address this now or address it during committee discussion?
So general discussion and the next committee. This is what was confusing as well to me. It says call on individual committee members, but then it says general discussion will be open in the next agenda item. So it feels I'm confused.
So ideally what we're asking committee members to do right now is to respond to the public comments that have been.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay. So then Molly, if you could wait,
I'll wait for later. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience as I re-navigate this role. Okay, Samantha, do you have any questions about the public comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you so much. Sue Johnson, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, and I affirm the general direction that all those comments made.
Fantastic, thank you. Larissa, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Michelle Martin, do you have any questions?
Just one question. As I affirm and understand those priorities and what each presenter had to say, I'm wondering at what point that there is the specifics about what they would be asking for or what their proposal would be for funds.
That's a great question. Kimbra, do you have an answer?
Yeah, so staff can provide an answer to that. So Michelle, once we establish priority needs, then we will open it up for actual competitive application. The application begins the federal nexus for the project. And so we have to have them actually input their requests, their description of their project, any proposed timeline or any additional items for action that they that they're looking to do with the project and with the funds. And then you will receive that application for review prior to the August 16th hearing, where we make the formal recommendation of the funding award that you would like to provide to the agency.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, good question.
Okay, thank you so much for your cooperation. So now we are going to make do we do a motion to make formal action on priority needs? No, we're just moving on to do that.
Yes.
So now we will, go ahead.
I was gonna say, now you're just gonna open it up for general committee discussion, and then we'll have action following discussion.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you can't see my blushed, embarrassed face right now.
You're doing great. Susan had 5 seconds notice before she jumped on and being the standing chair today, so.
And I even put lipstick on, but you can't see it, so oh well. Okay, anyway. So now we're going to start with staff priority recommendations and go down the list from there. I'm ready for you staff to make that.
So what we can do is we can either pull up the priorities again on the screen, or we can again go by each committee member to ask any additional questions that they may have for staff on the needs presentation that we had, or in just general activities for needs. I know that we have a standing open question from one of the committee members for follow-up. So Vice Chair, if you would like us to start with that one open question, we can do that, or we can.
I would love that. Let's
Okay.
start with her question, with Molly's question.
Yes, if you could state the question again, that would be great.
Yeah, I would just love a little bit of your wisdom behind the priorities that you recommend that we invest in. So for example, the public facilities one is actually already projected to exceed its goal, but we're still recommending to continue to invest in it more. I can see lots of good reasons for that, but would love to see, what the rationale is for each of the ones to invest.
Yeah, that we've basically highlighted
Yeah.
to maintain.
Yeah.
No, it's a fantastic question. So again, this is Kimberly Andrew in response to this. So with the rehabilitation of existing, let me start with the top and I'll go down with, and actually, you know what, I am going to go ahead and share our list of needs again, in case anybody needs to see that. So with public facility improvements, this has been a goal that's been a part of the Consolidated Plan since we initially went out we did intensive public engagement in 2019 leading up to when we submitted this to HUD. And at the time, we were hearing that there was a high need for that then. Of course, with COVID and kind of putting, a kibosh on any construction for a while, we are now hearing that a lot of agencies are kind of back in the swing of trying to pick up any improvement needs. Of course, some of those are going to be more related to, HVAC improvements for some, facilities now, of course, with COVID, or maintaining housing so that there's a preservation of that. So there's a lot of stuff where we're hearing that, on a community level, we're hearing that this is still there. Do I have a needs assessment that's kind of telling me that at this point? Not necessarily. It is very interesting to go out and identify needs in this world now with COVID, because there is a lot that's still dependent on impacts from COVID. But of course, that's the interesting thing about this use of funds, is that these are not meant to be in response to COVID. They're just meant to be general improvement funds. So with that, for public facilities, we've heard, of course, that there are a couple of agencies that have come up during committee meetings, partnership meetings, that have all said, hey, we're looking to try and do some improvements to our facilities. And staff has, of course, been a part of those. And so we're carrying that forward for the committee, understanding that the Child Stride project, which is going to start this program year, and we're actually just meeting with them, and we're starting the environmental process for them this month. That one, yes, is expected to exceed this outcome indicator. I'm going to tell you this right now, that outcome indicator was set in 2019. Yes, and so at the time, it's always hard to expect to see what it is that we're kind of looking at. It may be worth in our August hearing to go, okay, well, understanding that public facilities, after we've heard all this public testimony, is still a high need. Maybe we need to actually change the outcome indicator and maintain this as a priority. Something for us to touch on in August, for sure. After that, we of course have housing, the rehabilitation of rental housing units. That is just highlighted because, again, we just haven't had anybody take advantage of that. Typically, we don't have too many of those projects coming in anyway, just because, a lot of the major players that end up using or end up being rental housing providers and developers are doing a lot of creative financing through other means anyway. And so we just haven't had anybody bite on that in a while. The one project that we funded back in 2019 for rehabilitation of rental units ended up completing their project in 2021. And so there was, of course, COVID impact on the construction for that again. So but that wasn't included in the 2020 Consolidated Plan goals because that was a 2019 activity. And so we want to pick this back up because we know that that's needed. We know that that's out there. It's just nobody's taken advantage of it yet. And 50 households, I don't know if that's, that was a understanding that a lot of these projects are going to end up having, multiple housing units on site. 50 housing units may be very high or maybe very low. It's hard to say until we start getting projects in to see who wants to utilize these funds. The emergency shelter and transitional housing bed added priority. Of course, emergency shelter and transitional housing is such a highlighted need right now, just in general. Of course, we see that the city's doing definitely some support of this priority through, again, other funding sources as they're listed. ARPA is doing a really good job with carrying forth the pallet expansion projects. But we are also seeing that right now planning, for example, is having to implement additional definitive codes in the zoning code for transitional housing under a new state law that just changed the definitions of emergency shelter and transitional and housing in general. Woo, talking too fast. And so with that, we want to maintain that this is still a highlighted need. We are seeing this on both a kind of trickle down level from the state on the city needing to be mindful of this type of project and this need needing to be facilitated. So again, just putting that out there to see if that's something that people want to take advantage of. The Cdbg program, of course, will have, whenever we do, I haven't said this yet, but whenever we do a non-service development project, these all do come with restrictive loans on the property and covenants that restrict the property to maintain the use for the low-income persons for an X amount of time. Otherwise, the loan comes due, and then we end up seeing that as program income, then offsets this, and we would do this whole process over again. The last one for economic development, facade improvements, that one's actually fairly interesting. So it wasn't until this year that we started hearing that there might be some interest on economic development facade improvements for the downtown business area. There is a business improvement area that collects some tax, I believe, for businesses. The Downtown Everett Association does help to facilitate that. But of course, there's not really a lot of money for masonry repairs, for reinforcements or retrofitting when it comes to, earthquake, kind of safety measures. And just general, of course, there's a lot of buildings downtown which could use creative financing to transition over to affordable or supportive housing elements with a mixed use kind of component on the bottom floor or whatever else. So that one was something that actually just came up in the last few months as being a priority need that we've heard of. Any other additional comments or questions?
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Okay, great.
Wonderful, thank you. So I can go down the list and find out if anybody currently has any questions about, yes, Sue Johnson.
Just a quick question on what we are doing is adding these as supplemental priorities and maintaining the other priorities that were earlier in the slideshow. Is that correct? So this is just to highlight this list of 3 bulleted areas, or are these 3 bulleted areas what would encompass the $500,000 potential funding?
Staff, are you able to address that question?
Yes. So to answer good question. So to answer your question, the chart that you have that has the 2020 through 2024 Consolidated Plan goal summary, those priorities are still standing. Those priorities will continue to stand until our August hearing. And at the August hearing, then the committee can go, you know what, we haven't had anybody bite on And it may end up being that we have nobody bite on overnight emergency shelter transitional housing beds. And so does the committee want to then take that goal off and look at kind of augmenting other projects in housing instead and increasing our outcomes for other areas, other priorities? So what we're looking at today these are the priorities that will guide the $500,000 based on the fact that these are the priorities where we're seeing a high demand of need.
Okay, so let me make sure I understood your answer then. These priorities that are on the screen presently will be what guides the supplemental funding, just these?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Samantha, did you have a question? You're muted.
Hi. So I didn't have a question. I had a comment because when Sue asked her question, it kind of made me think like, I wonder how many more people, may think, along those lines. So, and Kimbra, please, or Vicky, stop me if I'm wrong. But for anybody that watches any of our meetings, what we're really doing right now is we're playing catch up with priorities that, we had back in 2019, as well as trying to measure new needs and find a way to integrate those former needs and our new needs and kind of not only play catch up, but move forward. So, a lot of things are going to come to light August 16th, I think, at least going off of what I've heard. But we're playing catch up. Also, we're investigating. Also, we're going to have to try to find a way to mix all of this together and really boost ourselves into the next years to come. So if I'm wrong, sorry, but pretty sure I'm not wrong.
That was all correct.
That's
That's all I had. I just wanted to try to clear that up for anybody watching that, like, what are they doing? What are they talking about? This is what we're doing.
Thank you. Chris Dingle, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. So I had a question surrounding a couple, I guess, definitions for one. So we've talked about here, mentioned utilities, and it's not on this list. So again, if this is not the appropriate time, I'm happy to shut up. But when we're talking about utilities, I haven't seen necessarily a definition of what that encompasses. Is that, I know broadband was mentioned, but if we're looking for support for utilities, I'm curious what falls under that, and what we've heard, if anything, about support for that. And then my other question was around, I don't see anything here that specifically lists food services. And so I'm curious, as that's been highlighted by a presenter, if we have any definitions of available services that we are supporting, can support. Yeah.
Staff, would you like to answer that question?
I'll answer the second one and let Kimbra answer the first one. So
Go
write it down. So in regard to food services, so we do support food service through like our human needs grants. The thing is, what we're looking at with these supplemental funds are non-public service activities. So like buying food is, or serving food is more of a public service activity. So this would be like if there was, as one of the guests mentioned, making an improvement to a food bank so that they can provide more service. So it is additional service in some ways, but it's for a public facility improvement. So it's considered non-public service, and the activity is construction or remodeling or rehab or something like that. So I think that answers some of it.
Yeah, I think, a simple way to kind of look at it is that we are supporting food services, but with the non-public service funds, we have to look at the classification of the activity. And so a public or food bank is just like a community center, is just like a Senior center is just like any other public facility. And so we can support the food activity through the public facility improvement. Subsequently, if there was something where we wanted to highlight senior services and we were working with a senior community center, that would be the same. It's the same platform for that, same line of thinking. To your other question, utilities. Utilities are, I always kind of have to chuckle a little bit because Cdbg and HUD just have a wonderful way of looking at things, defining things and stuff. So when we're looking at utility improvements, that's really to help. If there was, for example, a project that came to us and it wanted to do installation, I'm going to stick with an easy one, installation of a community center on a new parcel, and it's a blank piece of land that somebody luckily found in the city of Everett and they were able to actually build on top of. Then the utilities are going to include the water lines, any electrical line installation costs, sewer line costs. Broadband is being seen as a different component. I think it is still part of public infrastructure right now because it is considered a utility. But of course, Cdbg actually and HUD is specifically highlighting broadband as a separate component out of utilities because it's such a, the technology gap that exists right now is such a wide one that they're just kind of highlighting that one specifically out of that. But utilities are seen as the same as any other kind of generic definition of it under a construction activity. There are specific nuances. Of course, all of this does come back to, again, kind of working alongside, especially as we're a government agency, working alongside. If this ends up being in the public right of way, then this is a public improvement that will require public works staff. So this kind of gets the public infrastructure component, which is where the utilities come into play, does get a bit tricky depending on where it is, who's working on it. And of course, all of these funds have to still follow Davis-Bacon and prevailing wage labor laws. And so we just really get into a lot of complexities when we start looking at public infrastructure, but it can be used to augment somebody's, development of a new parcel or a new project. If needed, or it could be something that's just a generic, neighborhood sidewalk improvement, and in which case, that's just used for general improvement for accessibility and any kind of even ADA compliance. That is just broad and generic for you. That may end up giving other questions for you.
Thank you. Samantha, do you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. So
Okay.
to touch on that, I was, and we can always hold off until the 16th of August, but to touch on the public infrastructure, it just seems so sticky. Why do we not have more of a smaller subgroup that's focused on that? Because it seems like so touchy, so many, different barriers, a lot of red tape and a lot of figuring out. Are we going to be able to integrate proper focus on public infrastructure and, still maintain everything that we have? Or do we have the possibility to maybe make a subgroup that focuses on that?
Yeah, supporting activity, kind of like what we have. So we have, of course, the priority goals that are listed on the screen and then specific supporting activities. So I think that, to your question, that's definitely something that we can revisit in the August hearing is going, okay, so with public infrastructures, do we really want to highlight a specific activity to support this priority need? Or do we just want to cast a wide net and see, who may need it kind of thing? But I think that's a great discussion point that we can bring up at the August hearing.
Got it. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Do any of the other committee members have any questions or comments they would like to make at this time? I do not see any hands up. Am I missing anything or not hearing something? No, I don't think so. So Kimber, so these are your priority, your list, right? And so now we are making a motion to accept this as our supplemental priority list.
Yes, now the committee should move forward on determining priority needs. You can either accept this recommended priority list as is presented on the screen by staff, or the committee may open it up to change any of the priorities. But yes, this is the vote for actual action at this time.
Okay, so at this time, I would like to ask for a formal motion and a second, and we will vote on yes, Sue Johnson.
I move that the committee accept the recommended supplemental priorities as presented by the city.
Larissa?
I second that motion.
Thank you. I'm going to do a roll call vote on this. Matt Bissell,
Yes.
Josh Bruner,
Yes.
Christopher Dingle,
Yes.
Molly Eberhart,
Yes.
Samantha Hassan,
Yes.
Michelle Martin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Is it okay that I skip the two? Sue Johnson,
Yes.
Larissa Knopp.
Yes.
Okay, we have all yeses, and so we are moving on to the next item. Thank you so much for your yeses. Next item is staff updates and next steps.
Okay, wonderful. Good job, guys. You got through action. First action for the new committee too. Yay. At this time, if our in-person or our virtual visitors want to stay on, you can. If you want to just hear what's coming up, or you may leave. But general staff updates, I will make this quick because I know that we're right at 5 o'clock. Is that, of course, we're going to open this up for public comment. The priority needs can still be contested, or somebody can support them through public comment. Either way, that has 30 days, and that will last again from June 13th until July 14th. Following that, we will go forward for NOFA, the Notice of Funding Availability. Again, if you are listening to us and you are an agency, make sure that you're signed up for newsflash updates, because we will be circulating the NOFA through the newsflash as well as posting it online and in the Herald. And then the next step also is that we will be really kicking off our Amplifund subcommittee efforts in the next or this month. And then also we're going to be preparing for the committee to have just a generic public meeting in July, where we will actually have an open Amplifund discussion with all committee members. So that will not be a meeting for formal action, but I would very much encourage everybody to still attend that meeting. For our new committee members, you will all be given access to Amplifund so that you can even see what the system is like and get in there. But we will be bringing up our discussion about around equitable scoring practices, any research and discussion that the subcommittee has brought forth, and then open that up for general committee discussion for us to be able to set up for the federal NOFA, which will kick off this fall following the August public hearing. So I believe
Larissa,
Larissa.
excuse me, Larissa and Sue Johnson both have their hands up, I think.
Yes.
No, Larissa. Okay, sorry.
Have you gotten sufficient people on the subcommittee?
I will say that if we have one more interested party, I would love to have one more person join us.
Do you
So I'll
have
just leave it at that.
Do you have a time frame for when and how often you will meet and when?
Yeah, right now we are looking to have at least 2 meetings in between now and the July 15th, the July 5th. No, when's our actual formal hearing? 15th, right? When's our actual public hearing in July, or public meeting in July? Oh, July 19th. Goodness. So we're going to have 2 meetings before the July 19th meeting. And again, there's individual research and collection of best practices and ongoing discussions that the subcommittee is also going to be having during that time. The general 2 meetings that we're going to be holding are really just for everybody to pull together and to all get on the same page and to make, certain decisional actions for us to be able to move forward and present this to the July meeting. We have not set the dates for that. In fact, the subcommittee will be meeting immediately following this hearing to discuss dates. and when we'd actually like for everybody to meet. But right now, we're only looking at 2 meetings, and then after July, we will need to then meet again to present everything for the August, for everything to be ready in August, and then we'll actually do formal rollout in September with the federal applications.
Thanks.
Vicky?
Yep.
Yes. So I just have 2 points to bring up. One is potentially the August 16th meeting, Tuesday, August 16th, might not start until 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So, and that meeting is going to be a fairly hearty meeting. So just try, if you can, to block out 5 to 7 p.m. and it very well could go to 7 p.m. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is it turns out that Tuesday was the winner for whether Mondays or Tuesdays work out better for the committee. So I will be sending out the meeting invites for the meetings through the end of the year, probably next week. But just so the Tuesdays tended to be the better day for the majority of people for our meetings through the end of this year, and they will typically start at 4 p.m. except August 16th has a potential to not start until 5 p.m.
Wonderful.
And I think the only other thing that I'll add is that we're not quite sure how, with this hybrid option that we're going to go, at the very minimum, we'll continue to do what it is that we're doing today. And so again, we'll continue to have an in-person option for attendees as well as a virtual option. But just everybody, just be mindful that this is a learning opportunity for the city as well. And so that may change in the future, but we're gonna, at least what we had today was good enough, I think. So just be flexible with us. That's the only thing I can ask. So
Awesome.
back to you, Vice Chair.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second, please.
Second the motion.
Thank you. If anybody is not in favor, could they please speak up? And you can't see me putting my hands around my ears listening really hard. So I am saying that this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Good job.